Hey guys, how you going? So good to see you again. Thanks for joining me today. Today I'd like to be talking to you about some new Nikon releases. So there's been some exciting rumours and news. How true they all are, well, we'll have to just wait and see in time, but what I do hear is very exciting. So it's nice to have something positive to chat about, and that's what I'd like to do. So I don't have any products to demonstrate today as far as new lenses or cameras or etc. to go, because they're all theoretical. But I'll put some pictures up of what people are expecting to see soon. Now, some of those things are two new lenses and also a potential new camera body coming out very soon. So that's what we'll start off the day on. We'll start off on the camera body. I have got a camera bag details to talk about later too, which is actually very exciting. It's a big hard case, but we'll talk about that a little later. So getting back to the subject at hand, which is new Nikon releases, I was very excited to hear about the potential of what could be called a Z900 or a Z90. Who knows what they're going to call it? I don't really know. But it's really like a replacement of the D500. Now the D500 was a crop sensor camera, and that was a brilliant sports action and wildlife camera. So birders particularly loved it because of the crop factor. What you could do then is like zooming in your lens. So just as the teleconverter lenses that have come out recently, the 400 has a built-in teleconverter in it, so you can go from 400 and then you flick the switch and you go now to 560. That's a great option and terrific to have, but if you don't happen to have something like that and you need extra reach, with the DX mode camera, if you've got a 400mm lens that's a prime and that's all it's fixed at, then with the DX factor it looks like it's around 600 plus, so because it's cropping in so much. So that's awesome. That was a great tool, but wouldn't it be nice to have something in the Z format like that? So we've got like the Z5 here, and we've got the Z50 and the TC one, the little cute one, but retro style, but none of those are actually really what you call a high-end professional DX camera, and that's what we really need. I mean, when we talk a lot about these crop sensor cameras, some people talk about entry-level cameras, and I'm not really thinking of them as that, because let's face it, if anybody wants something entry-level to take a photo with, they're going to use their mobile phone. That's really the cheapest entry-level camera you can get because it's always with you, and they do work exceptionally well. I use my phone on my camera phone quite often when I just want to take documentation or evidence of something, or record just something that doesn't matter about the detail, but I just need that to refer back to. So for very many images that are what you would call entry-level or primitive photography, the phone is great. So I imagine that this new release camera, DX format Z mount, would probably be equivalent to the D500. That's sort of a theme anyway. Now as far as the specs go, well, it's going to have things that are a lot better than the D500, as these modern Z cameras are. So for example, the video features would be much more astounding. It'd have excellent autofocus. It would probably have quite a decent processor, if not the two processors like the Z7 II and the Z6 II. It may have that sort of a processor arrangement in it, or it could have something in between that and the new Z9, some sort of compromise processor. But it will need good processing power. That's actually, you can't get away from that, because if it's going to be sports action, wildlife, birding and so on, you're going to need some real grunt power in the processing department. So what are the advantages of getting a DX camera over getting, say, just the Z9 then? Why not just buy the Z9 if that's what you want? Well, the point of the DX camera that's better is not so much the form factor that it's physically lighter. That doesn't really matter. Let's face it, you put a 600 or 800mm lens on a camera body, it doesn't matter how heavy or light the camera body is, that lens is going to weigh 3 times more than the camera anyway. So you're not saving anything in size or weight. The big advantage is that cropping in factor, so that can be very convenient. The other advantages of the DX is that you can get a lot of fast shutter speed from it because it's a smaller file. Now on the talk about the smaller files, the former D500 crop sensor camera was about 21 megapixels thereabouts, 20 to 21. Now I'm imagining, because Nikon seem to be focusing more on high-end, high detail photography, so most of the sensors now are 45 megapixels or thereabouts. I'm imagining that it can't be 45 megapixels. That'll be just too much. And if it was, then what have you gained? You've gained very little in processing ability. So what I think they're going to do is compromise. I don't think it'll be as low as 20. I think that'll be not sufficient resolution for that style of camera in this modern era. In the 2020s, you're really looking at much more megapixels. So 20 will probably not be the ballpark. I don't believe also that it'll be as high as 45, but it could very well be as high as 30. Perhaps 30, maybe 32, because other camera manufacturers in their crop sensor frame idea, have around that 30 megapixels. So I think that's very believable, and that'd be really exciting to have a crop sensor camera that actually had some good resolution. Well, you wouldn't be reaching for those high megapixel cameras and full frame all the time, would you? Because it's going to do the job 99% of the time anyway. So it's also going to be cheaper. So here's the Z9 in Australia is about $9,000 to purchase Australian. The D900, should it be called that, Z equivalent of the 500, it's most likely going to be maybe $5,000 Australian. Now that might sound a lot. I mean, it's the same price as the Z7 II, for example. But consider what you get, your bang for your buck. The performance factor, the processing power, the new generation of megapixel sensor. There's going to be really awesome package. So there's some compromises. So yes, it's not quite as high resolution as the full frame options that are available. That's understandable. But you're trying to get maximum performance in a budget. So you're getting almost Z9 performance, but you're paying almost half the price for it. And that makes it really great value. So exactly what the pricing is, we don't know yet. Exactly what the details are, we don't really know yet. But what we do know is what would be appropriate and what we're expecting. So based on what Nikon have done in the past and what other camera manufacturers are heading towards, we can imagine Nikon will keep up with that. And there is definitely a void in the market for a high performance crop sensor camera for Nikon. So I'm actually very excited about this as even an option, and I can't wait to see any more releases of information on it or pictures and facts and details. But a high megapixel crop sensor camera with a great performance processor and a new generation of sensor, I think that would be very exciting indeed. And I would actually prefer to purchase one of those rather than another full frame camera. So yes, the Z9 is magnificent. No one's doubting that it has all this capability and power, but because I already have two cameras with 45 megapixels and full frame, do I need a third one? Well, no, I don't. So I would either have to, I would consider losing one of the other cameras and selling them, or what I would do is I'd buy this crop sensor camera that was still able to shoot in 4K at maybe 120 frames a second, I'm guessing. Probably won't have 8K. I'll pretty much guarantee you 8K is not going to be in the picture because it doesn't have the megapixels. You're going to need at least 36 megapixels minimum to do 8K, and this is not going to have that many megapixels. I would imagine, as I say, maybe up to 30. So it could be anywhere between 25 to 30, say, megapixels, and that's plenty for a crop sensor camera anyway. That's going to look beautiful. In fact, I used to use many years ago the D7100. Now that was maybe a 10-year-old camera. It was a crop sensor camera, but it had the 24 megapixels, and that was a really great camera. I'm going to tell you right now, I love that camera. It was fantastic. I've got all mirrorless now, so that's moved on and I've sold that one. But in a time when I was using it and I had the GE lenses, then that was fantastic, and I really appreciated the megapixels. 24 in a crop sensor format was actually really great. So if this one is even more than that and say 30, that's going to be wonderful, and would certainly make a lot of people very happy that they're not having to spend anything upwards to $10,000 to get a top-end camera. They can get all the performance advantage, but at half the cost, and that would be fantastic. So just to have that choice or option would be great, and as I said, having already full-frame cameras, the last thing I want to do is buy another full-frame camera. So I'm thinking that's why I would probably not buy the Z9. I'd hold off on thinking about that and spend half the money on this D500 Z equivalent, and I think I would be doing really well with that. I think that'd be a great investment. So that was the first camera I wanted to talk about. As I say, I'm looking forward to more specs on that. I'm sure we all are, but I think that's going to be a very smart choice for a lot of people who just don't want to spend that high-end figure of up to $10,000 on the Z9 and also have a 6-month or more wait to try and get one. The other thing we're going to talk about is lenses, and lenses I do have available to talk about. Now I have here the 70-200, and in the context of this 70-200 being a slightly longer focal reach than standard, we're going to talk about some of the big zooms coming out, or not so much zooms, they're more tele-converted primes. So it sort of makes it like a zoom if you like, because you might start off on the, say for the 400 TC, and the 400 2.8 will go to 560 when you click in the teleconverter. So it's sort of like a zoom, isn't it, in a way? And then, of course, now this is the exciting news that I'm really interested in, and that is they've released rumours about a 600mm TC. So it's exactly the same format as the 400 2.8, except it'll be a 600mm, most likely f4, Again, speculation here. I don't preach about things I can't confirm, but that would be my logical equivalent because it's a longer focal reach. You're not going to get the 2.8 factor, but f4 is also magnificent anyway and very usable. So f4 at 600mm, but with a TC teleconverter at 1.4, well, that means you're hitting up around 840 mils. What's so great about that is you don't have to carry a teleconverter with you. And here's the thing, like I've got a teleconverter with my 70-200, and I'll just bring it out. I have it in this little pouch just to keep it protected when I put it in my camera bag. Stops it getting knocked around and damaged. But I'll just take that one out of the little satchel, and here you have it here. And look, it's a small form factor. It's not a big bulky unit. It's about the same size as your adapter. FTZ adapter. But when I take this apart, and we'll just pull off the little bits and pieces here to protect it. We've got that separate here, and I'm just looking at where I can safely place that. I'll just place that here for now. When I get my 70-200 and I take the cap off, and I put this one on, and you can see it's got a cavity in there, and it's got a projection here. So obviously the projection goes into the cavity. It's very, very simple to really think about. If you had it the other way around, that's going to hit your sensor in your camera and damage it. So never do that. Always pay attention when you put your teleconverters on. Pay attention to which way you're putting them. You don't want to poke a hole through your sensor or try to do that. There's a big cavity in here, so that's obviously the safe place to put it in. So we're just going to connect these up. There it is, it's locked into position. And you can see it doesn't really extend the lens that much or much of an hindrance. But here with this sort of system here, and I'll just put the cap on, make sure I don't accidentally poke the elements there. When you're using this sort of a setup here, now I've just converted this from a 70-200 at f2.8 to now a 140 to 400mm at f5.6. Now f5.6 is still very useful. If you remember that the new 800mm that came out is 6.3, so no one's assuming that that's a worthless focal stop. So at f5.6, at 400mm, this is why I'm probably not that excited about the 400 2.8 TC. The reason I'm not that excited about that prime, is that I already have 400mm anyway. It's not 2.8, I understand that, but this lens here that I'm using right now, I just converted it to f2.8. So now it's f2.8 at 200mm. So to say, oh yeah, but you don't have a 2.8 lens when you put the teleconverter on, actually no, you do. Most people have a 70-200. It's a very common lens. If you've got the Z one, you're doing very well because it's an excellent example of the lens. But here with the teleconverter on, do I have a 2.8 lens? Yes. Can I use this at 200mm and get excellent results? Yes, I can. It's not long enough for most, sports action wildlife. No, but sometimes you're lucky and you can get in pretty close. Excellent for event photography or weddings anyway. But as I say, just simply placing on that teleconverter, and now I've got 400mm at 5.6, and I've been very happy with using that for most of my wildlife shoots. So considering the fact that I had to buy the 70-200 regardless, as it's versatile lens that it is, to just spend an extra $1,000 and end up with a 400mm lens, well, that was to me an absolute no-brainer and a bargain. So I was very excited about that. But the advantage of these new series of prime lenses with the teleconverters built into them is that you're not having to connect it. You're not having to store a separate component. And then on the scene you think, oh, 400, it's not quite doing it, and 560 might not be enough. So pull out your teleconverter, lost your composition, you're putting everything together again, put your 2 times in, you get your 800mm and the subject's gone. The beauty of those lenses is it's just a flick of a button. And that's why you buy them. You're not having to recompose, you're not losing that shot, and you get to fill your frame without moving. So that's their peak purpose and their beautiful design, and I'm loving that. So if I did get one, the 400 doesn't really excite me that much, no matter how optically brilliant it is, but the idea of a 600 f4 with a built-in TC means I don't have to bring that teleconverter with me. It's already got it built in, and if I can't get the shot at 840mm, then there's something wrong with me. That's pretty long focal range. So 840 is fantastic. I'm very excited about that lens. Start off at f4 at 600, go to 840 at 5.6, and it's in the one lens and you're not having to swap and change around. That's the dream lens for me. That's the one I'd be saving up my pennies to buy. Now, is it going to be cheap? Oh, hell no. That thing's going to be monstrously expensive. I would imagine at least $1,000 or more expensive than the 400, only because of its novelty. They're probably going to produce a lot less of them overall through the world. the 400 is going to be the popular one. And then what's going to happen is for those who really need that extra long reach, they're going to go for that 600 f4. And so therefore it's probably going to be a little bit more expensive. The less they make of them, the more expensive they become. The more they make, the cheaper they become. Which is why really the 70 to 200 is always such excellent value to buy. The optical brilliance of it, it's a 2.8, it has the zoom range, and it has the compatibility with teleconverters. Why is it you're getting that at such a great price at around $3,000 Australian? You're getting it because they make so many of them. Almost everybody has them, but not almost everybody's going to want a 600 f4. So that's, of course, it's a bigger unit, costs more to build the bigger unit, it's optically more complicated than this, and also, of course, they don't make as many. So anyway, that was also an exciting announcement. I believe it will be a 600 f4 with a built-in TC. That is the rumours that I'm hearing, and I think that is a fabulous choice for anyone doing sports action, wildlife, birds in flight and that sort of thing. It'd be brilliant to take just the one lens with you and have all that covered. And if you did want to take a second lens with you, what I would advise is not the 400 or not even a PF lens. I would advise you take something like this, the 70 to 200 with a teleconverter on it. And that way you've got a 200, 2.8, all the way to 140 to 400 f5.6 with you. So that covers that closer focal ranges, and then the 600 with the up to 840 mils covers everything beyond that. So I think those two lenses alone, when you've already got this one, or at least I already do, and many of my friends do, so you're not buying another lens. Take that with you for the closer ranges, and then you use the 600 f4 with the TC for those longer shots and reach. So yeah, that's exciting news coming from Nikon. I'm very excited to hear about it. So we were talking about the lenses, of course, and in context of that, there was the 800mm. And the 800mm 6.3 is a magnificent lens and copped very good reviews. Everybody seems very pleased and impressed with it. And it's all about proportions, isn't it? It's value for money. You see, you can spend big money on either the 600 f4 coming out in the future or the 400 2.8 with the teleconverters built in, but you're spending over $22,000 Australian for these. So the value of the 800mm is that it's half that price. And so it becomes something that people can attain to purchasing, whereas a lot of people just are not going to outlay the price of a new car on a lens that they may use a few times a year. So if you are not a full-time professional user of long telephotos, then the best thing you can do is, of course, buy the 800, and that's really good value. So I highly recommend that lens as far as its quality and functionality goes, and the value for money. But there is one little detail I think that hasn't been spoken about a lot with that lens, and it's an interesting thing to consider. I've heard a few people glance over it and mention it, but not actually really address what issues that could provide. And that is the fact that it's closest focus distance. The closest you can get to a subject and get focus is 5 meters. 5 meters is not bad. When you're shooting at 800 mils, most of your subjects are probably 10 or 20 meters away. So what's the issue? The issue is that when you find a very small object, let's say a little bird, and the bird might be, say, no bigger than this, and you're going to film that, you can take a photo or film it, and it's less than 5 meters away. Whatever reason, you're actually able to creep up and get nice and close to it, or it happens to land on a branch close to you, and you want to fill the frame. So you use the 800mm, you fill the frame with it, you can't focus. It's too close to you. What are you going to do? Back away? Well, you could back away, but you might spook the bird. It may not have actually even noticed that you were there or didn't pay any attention. Now, I'll show you some photo samples where I've taken photos of tiny little finches and sparrows. They're just absolutely miniature, a couple of inches high. They are little, delicate, tiny little birds. And I was able to basically stalk them, if you like, by sitting at a pier where I saw them flying around and catching dragonflies and little insects to eat and feed their little babies. And what they were doing is they were constantly perching and having a little rest on the pier, on the edge of it, and then they would fly off again. Now, this is a pier on a lake, not an ocean pier. And they were flying around this little pier, circling around, and they would land, rest for a second, and then take off again. And they would seemingly always land almost in identically the same spot. So what I was able to do was come and approach the area, and of course it took a bit of time to gradually work your way closer and closer, but I was able to get within a few meters of them, I would say 3 meters from these birds. And with this lens here, with only 400 mils, I was able to get right up on top of them and fill the frame and get a beautiful shot. Now, if I had the 800 with me, I wouldn't have been able to do that. I might have been able to fill the frame if I was lucky, but I couldn't have got 5 meters back because I would have been on the other side of the pier in the water. So in some circumstances, A, you just can't back up enough, Or B, you've got the opportunity to get in really close and fill your frame and get a great detailed shot, but if you've got to be 5 meters away, then maybe that's not going to work for you. So that's just a minor factor to take into consideration. Yes, I completely understand the context that rarely are you shooting with an 800mm and you're less than 5 meters away from your subject. But should you be, you're going to be in a bit of bother. So just keep that in mind when you're purchasing lenses like that and understand your application. If your application is shooting birds that are on a river or a lake and they're 10, 20 meters away from you, then that's fantastic. That's going to work perfect. But if you're actually walking around the wilderness, forests, etc., and you happen to stumble across a bird and it's nice and close and you want to fill that frame, well, just be aware that you might struggle. So it's just something to consider. It's not a negative on the lens. It's not a fault with the lens. It's just a reality with the lens. So for example, if you have the 600 f4 with a teleconverter that goes to 840 mils, that will focus within around 3 meters. I know the 400 is at 2.5 meters focal distance. I imagine the f4 600 will be something like 2.5, maybe 3. You are able to get a little bit closer. In fact, that's considerably closer, almost twice as close. So these all things make a difference in the composition of the shot, the blur of the background, for example, whether or not you could use a flash if you needed to have a bit of extra light on the subject. How close you can get to the subject dictates a lot of things. So just be aware you aren't going to get any closer than 5 meters with the 800mm 6.3. Just a minor detail, but I want to put it out there. So as far as that, that's pretty much the latest Nikon releases news that I wanted to speak about today. There are another thing I'd like to discuss, and that is a new purchase that I'm making this week. So I'm actually getting a new camera bag. Now, I'm not talking about a little camera bag that you put on your back. I mean, it's an actual hard case. Very similar in design to the Pelicans. This is not actually the Pelican design. I'll show you pictures and the brand name and so on, the model number, etc. will come up on the screen. It hasn't arrived yet. It's arriving maybe next weekend. So the reason I'm talking about it today, though, is that I'm showing you why I'm purchasing it, why I need this, and how my application it's going to make a big advantage and convenience for me. See, I have lots of camera bags and I have some big trolley bags, but the difficulty with the trolley bags I have is that they're soft bags, which means they tend to want to collapse in on themselves. So if they're not completely full and chock-a-block, they do tend to sag, and when you want to lift them upright with the handle and hold them steady, what they tend to do is collapse over and fall down. So I want something that if I let go of it as I'm trolleying along, it stays upright firm and doesn't collapse down. And I'm not scared of it falling over. I also want something that when I lay it down, I can use it as a step ladder. See, these hard cases are very, very tough. They're built to be almost indestructible. So what I can do is if I can use that as an extra foot higher clearance off the ground, it means A, I'm not standing in mud perhaps, but secondly, more importantly, I've got an extra height of platform. And let's face it, I take a lot of photos, believe it or not, with very tall people. It's a little bit exasperating. I'm not a little guy, I'm 6 foot tall. But that's nothing in comparison to a lot of the people I take photos with, who are often 6'3", 6'4", 6'6", and that makes it very difficult for me to get eye contact. So yes, I can lift the camera up above my head and use the tilty screen and touch the screen and get that sort of level of height, but that's not very efficient. It functions, yes, it's very doable. It's very good for things like you've got a wide angle lens and you're using it for like a function, a wedding, a reception or something. You want to get a photo of a crowd. So you're not necessarily having to focus sharp on one particular person. You can shoot at, say, f8, have a flash and get the whole crowd in 20 mils or something like that and have a nice wide shot. And that sort of thing works. We can lift it up, use the tilty screen, get those odd angles. But for my sort of photography, when I'm out doing portraits, what I'm using is usually a 50mm 1.2, where I need to absolutely guarantee focus is spot on the eye. The composition is extremely essential. Often I take photos very tight where I don't leave myself a lot of room to crop. Some people take a wide shot and they crop in. I tend to crop with the camera, so I get maximum resolution. So that just means that I don't have a lot of leeway. So the last thing I want to do is try and hold it up and think I've got composition right and I've ended up cropping half someone's ear or head out or the shoulders cut off or something. So for me it's much better to look for the viewfinder. I can see exactly what's going on. So if I have a strong hard case that's rectangular and sturdy and it's probably an extra foot off the ground, that makes me 7 foot tall when I stand on that. So I've got no issue then with getting line of sight with them. So that's one reason I'm having. Could I bring a step ladder along? You know, I've actually tried doing things like that, and it's a damn nuisance to bring an extra accessory. So if I'm already bringing a bag, and the bag can double as a platform, that's magnificent. There's two reasons it's handy to have these hard cases. One is you protect all your gear, and everything you have is in that one place. So you haven't got something's in your pocket, something's on a camera bag on your side, something's on your backpack, and you've got bits everywhere. No, you open the lid, bang, everything's there and on display. So that's one advantage. The other advantage is they keep everything completely weatherproof. So if I'm going out and it's maybe a chance of rain, and I'd never go photoing if I knew it was definitely going to rain, because then it's just miserable. But if a chance shower should take place, gee, it's really nice to think I can just put the lid down on this hard case and clip it, and it is 100% waterproof. It doesn't matter if it's dusty wind, it's sealed. It doesn't matter if it's raining really hard, nothing in that camera case is going to get wet. So that's sort of a security for you when you're bringing $20,000 worth of equipment onto the shoot, and you know that all that stuff is safe inside that hard case, it's well protected, it can't get damaged, and it's dry and dust free. That's really secure. So I'm going to spend a little bit of money on one of those. Now, how much money? It's about $500 Australian. I bought it only because, when I say only because, I bought it this week particularly because it was a special. They had the May Madness sale, like a click frenzy, and I got it about $100 less than its normal retail. So instead of spending the $550 that they usually retail as, I got it for $450. So that became a real bargain for me and irresistible. So I clicked and bang, that's on its way. You'll get to see it in the very next video. Very next video will be encasing a photo shoot I'm doing in a Japanese garden with a lovely man, Ben. He's in a magnificent flowing like kimono from the show Genshin Impact. It's actually like an anime style gaming, and that's a beautiful show, and he's going to do a wonderful job of his character, Zhongli. Also, I believe there'll be a partner with him, a young lady who will also be dressing in themed costumes. So we'll see how that all turns out, but you'll get to see the hard case there in operation. I might make a little bit of a video demonstrating it on site and set and how it actually works when you're moving around with it. So that'll be exciting. But let me show you how I'm going to structure this. So the case I'm buying is not one that is padded. Some of these cases are completely decked out with padding and foam all around and dividers. I won't be doing that. I've bought the case completely empty because I want maximum volume of room. Secondly, you might think, well, okay, what about padding? If you don't pad it up, things are going to get thrown around and broken and knocked about. Well, not in my situation, because this is the thing I'm going to be doing. So let me just show you. I'll bring it up. Inside this very large case, which was basically the size of this table. So you might be wondering why I'm using this big table today. Usually I use a little trolley table. I'm using this big one because this actually symbolizes how big that case will be. It's almost the exact dimensions. So here I have a little camera bag, and thank goodness for my little camera there, closing up on it. You'll be able to see things that I have inside it there quite well. So what I've got in this one here is some speed lights in this occasion. And you notice that this is a little backpack and it's completely padded. So that's why I'm not bringing or buying padding, because this is going to slot straight into that case. And that way I can just pull the whole thing out when I want it, if I should do, or if I leave it in there, I know it's well protected. So when I have gear, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my gear in such a way that I can just say, right, today I'm doing flash photography with photos, I bring this unit. And next time I'm doing video and I need LED lights, then I bring that other bag and just plonk it inside this trolley case. And it makes for me swapping things around very quick. If I have firm and set dividers, what that does for me, it means I've got a lot of mucking around changing all the dividers. This just means I don't have to worry about dividers. I'm not thinking about that. Everything is already sorted and padded. I just grab that case and chuck it in there, and it's safe inside that hard case. So this is a little camera bag, and that's the sort of thing that we're talking about I'm doing. While we're actually got the context of this up, I'm showing you here, look, I have little inventions. It's nothing outrageously intelligent or genius, but this one here, for example, I'll just put this to the side a little bit. There we go, make that tidy, and I'll show you here with the camera. That'll get a good view of that, and you can see here what I've got going on. So what this is my backlighting arrangement. So backlighting, how is that? Well, if I can illustrate there, you can see that it has coloured gels in it and grids, and I'm able to now give some nice backlighting to a subject. Now you can just use one speed light. I've used up to 4 for backlighting alone in various occasions. But this one here, I've made this little bracket and rig. I've made the rig and bracket specifically for the purpose of mounting onto a tripod. So what happens here is just a very quick connect and click arrangement, where I can simply place this in at a moment's notice anytime I want. So how does that work? Well, in this one here, and I have a different bracket on for different application too, but what I can do is simply put it into the what would be like a light stand, click it in with a few twists of the wrist and on a tripod now, and as you can see, that's how it would work. If I bring it down level with the camera there, you'll be able to see what's going on, and that empowers me now to be able to very, very quickly have backlighting up in any angle and degree I want. Now you might see that I've formed them in two slots. They're not going horizontal. The reason for that is I'm forming like a square of light, if you like, with this. So what that empowers me to do now is I get a broader spread of light without taking with me a very big, heavy studio strobe. So these things weigh a lot less than that. I don't have to worry about big battery packs. Just the batteries go inside the speed lights themselves, and that'll last me for the day's shoot. So yes, I just thought I'd show you through that configuration, how it works. It's very, very quick to put together and put apart. And it's the speed of accessibility and usability that I'm very happy with. So that's this camera bag. You're probably wondering what that was that were inside, and that's what it is. That's my backlight speed kit there. And of course I also have a spare light with me. So what I do here is in this pack I have a second light, spare one if you like, that is always available at a moment's notice. I can put that on another little tripod or stand if I should wish, and that enables me then, excuse me for the noise, that enables me then to have extra backlighting. So if the two are not quite enough and I want, maybe that's gold in the front but I might want a blue to the side, then I can use that other speed light on the light stand and have extra backlighting should I want it, or also use it as a spare speed light. Sometimes, you know, you're fiddling with the buttons on these speed lights and you forget what you do, and you've turned it off or deactivated some feature on it, and all of a sudden it's not working. So rather than my freaking out trying to work out on the spot how I fix it, I can just take that speed light off, put the other one on that I know was already set and tested, and just have that function as a spare. So it saves me looking like a fool in the middle of the process. I can just quickly swap over to another speed light should I need it. And also inside this hard case, and again we're demonstrating this table is about the size of the hard case, I will also have multiple of these. So I'm just going to bring them all up on the bench here, excuse me while I'm reaching down, and I've got multiple bags here. Now what's in these multiple bags? Right now it's not really important. I'm illustrating here in one that I just happen to have a speed light, but instead of a speed light, maybe I wouldn't. Maybe I would have something like this in here. And you see you can pad that up. Once I take the teleconverter off it, of course, it's a bit big with the teleconverter on, but if I didn't have the teleconverter on, that 70 to 200 fits perfectly in there, no problem at all. And then what I can do is I can zip all that up, have it all secured, and just plonk that in the hard case, and I don't have to think twice about what it's doing, where it is, or if it's safe. If I want to bring it along, let's just throw it in the empty hard case. Here I have another bag. This one here happens to have another lens in. This lens here with a bit of a divider in between. If I had a bit of foam there, I could have another zoom lens and a speed light in this bag. Again, you make it all safe, you zip it up and you clip it. And then that can also just get plonked in the hard case, and I can bring more accessories along. I have multiple of these sort of cases that came with LED lights that I've purchased in the past, and these can be padded cases. So as you can see, this one, it's got the foam, it's all padded. I'm using this one at the moment for a lot of my microphone equipment and sound gear. So yeah, it works really well for that. It's all padded, as you can see, and I've got various things in there. You can see here is microphone, cables, lav mics, little bits of accessories, and I put all that into that one little box there, and it's all padded up. And when I'm done, just zip it, keep it safe. That's a little hard case on its own with padding, and now that there can easily be just thrown into the case at will without any fear or worry of it being damaged. The one other thing that was a big advantage of this unit was these here. I love taking tripods with me. I rarely actually take a light stand, I'll be honest with you. 9 times out of 10, I would say, I use a tripod rather than a light stand. And the reason for that is the fact that you can adjust the legs heights very quickly. So what it means is you've got extra stability because they go out very wide should you wish them to. They go high, they go low, but also you can adjust, if you're on an uneven ground, you can make them balanced and very secure. So I take a lot of these tripods with me, and because they are reasonably long, they have a various length to them, to be able to put them into something like this, a big case, and have as many as you want in there, that's fantastic. It just means that I can take whatever I like, and I'm not stressing, oh, can I fit it into a bag? This definitely will fit in. I've measured it. It's about this big, the case really, in proportion. If I can just get my hands in the shot there. Where are we? So it's about from here to about there. That's about how long the case actually is in reality. It's 770 millimeters internally, about 840 on the outside. So it easily fits in several tripods and even longer ones than this, should I want to. I actually have some very heavy Vanguard tripods, and they're about 850 long, so they can go in, should I collapse them down, and even put them slightly on a bit of an angle. So I can make things happen. So that's what I'm doing. I just sort of run you through that briefly as a summary of things to come. We'll discuss that next fortnight and after the photo shoot, and I'll make a little video summarising the shoot and summarising, of course, that new case. So guys, we've got a new thing to talk about, a little invention I've made. Nothing rocket science here, but just some frames and rigs that have made my life a little bit more interesting and easy. And I always like to share if I come up with a little creation that I think might be interesting, if not particularly useful. You might be interested in having a look over it for the amusement, if nothing else. So what I've done is I'm a big fan of the flash bender units. I use them quite everywhere, and I think they're quite terrific. They're very versatile. I use them for my macro photography to direct light over insects or a flower, and I use them for portrait work, the larger models, to soften and shape light onto my subject. And what am I talking about? Well, I'll just show you it here, and this is not conventionally how you'll see them. You'll see why in a minute. But this is a flash bender here as we're talking. It's a simple diffusey softbox that goes onto your speed light. So here's your speed light here, and you just attach it over the top of your speed light, and you end up with a unit similar to this. Now it functions as a softbox, which I've made some minor modifications. The modifications I've made is I have a little plastic film of polycarbonate inside it that's clear, and that just gives it a bit of rigidity so it doesn't lose its shape in any way. It is like a soft box and it can bend and maneuver. I don't generally want it to do that when I'm doing portraits, so I want it to be its maximum volume. So I've got a little bit of a perspex shield in there, if you like, inside under the lining, and that not only makes it rigid, but it also gives it a slight bow because I've cut it just slightly, a few millimeters, 5 mils either side, longer than I needed it to brace it. And what that does, creates an arch when you close it all up. And that keeps everything very tight and keeps it inflated. Another little trick I did also is, if you're familiar with little plastic containers that you've often used for your lunch, little clear plastic container. I put one of those inside it and in between the backing board and this plastic card here, and what it does, it keeps it puffed up inside so it can never collapse. Now the reason I've done all this and gone to this little trouble is simply to ensure that it stays up and I don't have to think about it. I don't want to have to keep trying to puff it up and change its shape and manipulate it to keep it right and functional. I want to know it's always going to stay functional and just perform whenever I want it to. So these slight mods I've made to it, which I'll show you through in just a moment, a little later. But it's simply this time I'm using a Speedlight, an SB900. I have a lot of SB900s and SB910s, probably about 8 of these, and I find them very versatile. So here you see it's sitting on a frame. Now what's with the frame? Why did I make this frame for it? Well, the frame keeps everything strong and rigid and also gives me a mounting platform, and I'll explain all that detail a little later on too. But because there's a little bit of weight going on here, and it's not much, maybe a pound, half a kilo, but there is weight, and of course it could be creating stress on the joints and hinges here in the Speedlight. So also I want to take off any stress on the trigger, because after all it's a plastic box. I don't want to have it break with too much weight or knocking. So this aluminium frame that I've created, and it's just aluminium, it's 3 mil aluminium by about 50 mils, and that enables me to have a frame that takes all the stress off my equipment and just makes it all rigid and tidy. So anyway, I've got that flash bender, which you can use. You can hold it up. So if I illustrate it like this, you can see how you could take the photos with one hand and hold this up in the other. You've got a frame to hold it. It's always going to be steady and firm. And it doesn't weigh anything. It's aluminium, the frame. So it's not like it's a great burden to hold up. And secondly, it does make it safer and nice and strong. I have features, for example, and I'll just illustrate here, where I'm using the cotton carrier system mounted here. So I can mount that on the side of myself on my cotton carrier harness, and that enables me to be hands-free moving around with it. So it's just sitting on the side. When I want it, I'll release it, and there it is. I got it ready to go in a moment's notice. I usually leave it turned on all day, including the trigger, and then when I need it, then I just click my button on my camera and bang, it flashes. You see here I have an Arco Swiss mount on it as well, which is perfect when I want to mount it onto a tripod. So just to illustrate that now, I'll do that very, very quickly. But you can see here that it's as simple. There you go. So how quick was that to mount it? took a few seconds, right? So anyway, I just sort of illustrate that it does function on a tripod very well, and that's why I also have this mount. I've got the Arco Swiss there, and I've got the cotton carry system there. It gives me something structure here to mount things on, which is very handy. Now on its own, the flash bender, even independent like this, is actually a very functional unit. It does do a good job of diffusing light, but I've got an extra step. You see, I was looking at this the other day, and I was thinking, you know, how can I make even extra diffusion? Could I perhaps have a big, like a disc of a diffusion panel in front of that to add an extra layer of diffusion? And I thought, that would mean I'd have to extend this out, and there'd be framing, and it was going to be very complicated. It would work, I have done this before, but it's not transportable and comfortable. I wanted to have something. I thought, how can I even get a greater diffusion but without any complication and quick access? And as I was thinking about it, I was looking up at my LED light. Now I've got this 180 watt LED light panel. It's about 300 by 400 millimeters in diameter, and it's incredibly strong. Right now it's lighting up most of the room for me. It's on only about 50% power, and it's already nearly burning my eyes out. It's that strong. So if I put it up 100%, it'd be insane. So they give you a diffusion box that goes over for that to give you an extra layer of diffusion and soften the light should you want to. Now what is that one there? I'll just move this aside for a second, and I'll show you. This is the item that they give you. Now it's a terrific item, this one. I love it. It's from D&O Lighting. It's actually from that company. If I can just turn it around and illustrate there, you see the signage on it, so you can see it is from D&O, and that fits immediately over the light. It does so because at the back here you can see it's tailor-made to fit over. You can see it's got stretchy bits here, it's got little bits of elastic. I can show you here that what they do is they clip over the light, and it's just as simple as you just pop it on. So you just put it on the light, clip, clip, it's done. A few seconds and it's all ready to go. And when you want to pack it away, it packs away beautifully. It doesn't stay the size. These little metal rods you see in the sides there, they collapse in. So do you see that happening there? All you got to do is give them a tap and they collapse. You straighten them out and they stay firm. So you collapse them in when you want to, and there it is. You see what a small form factor it is there? But it gets even better because this thing here is designed to scrunch up and put into a little bag. So you can fold it up like that, you put it in your little bag and you throw it in your camera bag, and it takes up no volume at all. So this is not harming it. This is what it's designed to do. It's designed to be a portable little softbox that you can fold up to nothing and only use when you need to. So I was looking at this item, and I'll just pop it out there. And I was looking at this item and I'm thinking, hold it, that's almost exactly the same size as the flash bender. I wonder if I could incorporate the two and make them work together. And yes, I can. So because inside here, and I didn't notice it at all when I was initially using it and purchasing it on the LED light, but they actually include a Velcro style material around the perimeter of the diffusion here. So all I have to do then, I'm thinking, is if I had the reverse Velcro, I could probably work out a way of Velcroing, sorry, just trying to get this in there, yeah, Velcroing something to that, and having that stick and be very convenient. So that's what I did. Because the Velcro was already there in this unit here, I didn't have to modify this whatsoever. I put a little bit of Velcro, as you can see, on this top end, and that's to correspond with this mount here, so that they stick together and it just forms a nice secure bundle up the top. But to put it in and use it with the flash bender, what I've done here, and I'll just bring this over so you can see, I've got a little bit of Velcro, and this is the rough toothy end of it, the hook if you like to call it end, and that here either side strip fits exactly onto where the Velcro is inside the softbox. So with almost no modification to the flash bender other than this little bit of Velcro, which I've simply super glued on. So I bought some super glue, see the super glue there, glued it down, and then I'm able to just stick it straight onto the softbox now with no trouble at all. Cost me nothing. In fact, I had the Velcro at home and the super glue, so there was no real expense. I was fortunate there that I had what I need. But how do you attach these two? You might say, oh, that's all very terrific, you know, how do I get it in? And how do I make it fit? Well, it actually fits in perfectly. Again, we're just using these little elastic sides here that come with it. You can see them here, each corner has them. And you just fit them into the edges of the softbox. The Velcro will, by its own nature, just fall on top of where it should go because it's the perfect sizing. So again, you lift up this little bit of elastic there, fit it to the Velcro, fit the flash bender, another little bit of a clip there, and there we go. We've got a sealed unit, Velcroed in, perfect. Now with this bit of Velcro at the end there I had, just connect that down together and it forms like a little rigid piece now. So as you can see now, it's all functional there. To make it a softbox, you just pop it out and there you go. Now I have a fully functional softbox that I can use. I'll just make sure they're all extended out. They are. The little magnetic clips on the corners here, you can see, little magnetic clips. So you can put them down, you put them up, they just clip in as a magnet. And there I have an extended softbox. So even though the flash bender was excellent for lighting and looked really, really good and worked very well, it's so nice, isn't it, to now have a system where I have this extra thick softbox. Now, that in itself could be a bit awkward to carry around with you. You might think that's just a bit of overkill. But that's where the beauty of this thing is, that you can use it as a softbox when you want. And when you want to transport it around, you simply just collapse it down and it has into a very small form factor now. So what I do here, excuse me if I find it, here it is. I have a little bit of Velcro with me, a Velcro strap. And what you can do with this Velcro strap, I find this quite convenient, it's not an issue at all, is if I put that around like this, and I have that down, I can just keep it flat. So it just keeps it flat. What this does, this little bit of Velcro strapping I've used just there, again something I had in the house anyway, you can buy them for about $5 or $10 at your local hardware store, and what that does is keeps it flat, so it stops it popping up, so it doesn't elevate up when you don't want it to. And then when I carry it around, excuse me, covering my face, when I carry it around now, it's a very low form factor, and I've got this cotton carrier system or the tripod mount should I wish it. And there, so now you see what's going on. I wanted to demonstrate how this all works and how quick and easy it is to function. As I say, when I'm actually in use on site, and I will be using it next weekend on the photo shoot where I'll be using the new camera hard case. I'll demonstrate that, but I'll also demonstrate the use of this at the same time. So I'll leave this permanently on, and then when I want to actually use it, you just remove that. That goes into the camera box, pop, and there we go, and I've got a lovely, nice big softbox now. And it works fabulous, absolutely fantastic. So for soft imagery, that's going to be magnificent, and I'm just very excited that I was able to utilize something I already had. For me, fortunately, I didn't have to buy something new, but if you do have to buy them, this thing here is probably worth no more than about $25, and a little bit of Velcro and super glue, and for $30 you've got one of the best portable softboxes you could ever have. And it is something that I use with my LED panel anyway, so I've got a double function out of it. So there you go, I've run you through that. I hope you find that interesting to see how I put it all together. And I just wanted to share the little toys and little creations I make, and hopefully it works magnificently on set. I'm yet to try it on set. I've used it around the house to give some samples of its soft light, but to actually use it on site will be an interesting experience. So I'll get back to you on that and I'll show you exactly how it performed with sample photos from that day. I'm looking forward to that weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you anyway for bearing with me and seeing me through all my little inventions and tricks and tips. I hope some of them have been interesting and useful to you. But one thing I'll always encourage people to do is use your imagination, guys. You don't have to go out and buy big fancy equipment that's worth tens of thousands of dollars. Sometimes just using some accessories you already have around the house and a little bit of thought and improvisation, and you can make something quite unique and magnificent. So have a good day, guys. Thank you for your time.